In 1963, two black men pulled off the most unbelievable hustle in American financial history. They secretly bought one of the biggest banks in Texas, using a white guy as their front. They made millions of dollars until the government found out and launched a full-blown investigation. This is the insane, real-life-based story behind the banker. After his payment, a curious boy named Bernard climbed an elevated window to eavesdrop on a meeting of three white men, but an older black man caught him and barely spoke before the boy dashed away. Later, his father Britton warned him such actions could lead to hanging, but the boy only wanted to learn how money worked, convinced that knowledge of property valuation, ownership shares, and capital belonged to the white men. Flipping through the boy's notes filled with maths, mortgage calculations, and rental income, Britton saw his potential but urged him to leave. Texas's financial conditions weren't built for someone like him to succeed. Years later, Bernard arrives in a suit, ready for a Senate committee hearing on federal oversight of bank licenses, knowing regulators won't go easy. Like a flashback, the memory unfolds to back when the young black American was just a boy, going around cleaning shoes and earning commendations from his white customers. After wrapping up each job, he would scribble something down in his little jotter. One of the men, having his shoes shined, kept going on about a purchase deal he was preparing to negotiate with his partner, breaking down the agreement terms and expected profitability. Years later, the now mature Bernard takes his wife, Eunice, and their son to visit her uncle. He's uneasy about the visit, knowing the man can be a real thorn. During dinner, the older gentleman, Deacon, brings up a new company that's looking to hire African-American workers at an assembly plant. The offer doesn't interest his guest one bit, as he's sticking with real estate, particularly investment property in segregated areas. That conviction makes the host chuckle, though his wife quickly asks him to stop mocking their guest.
My husband is a genius. You'll see.
Deacon, a strict businessman who keeps things separate, questions how this aspiring real estate agent plans to keep up with lease terms and household expenses while chasing big dreams. The teasing gets under his skin, and so the younger man excuses himself, saying he needs to tuck in Bernard Jr. The host doesn't let it go. He holds Eunice back and questions her about her husband's refusal to get a real job. Still, the woman stands by him, insisting her partner will make things work and bring his plans to life. Eventually, until then, she's willing to support him however she can, even if it means working on the plantation herself. With the couple finally tucked away in their room, Bernard uses the moment to reassure Eunice that whatever they're going through is only temporary, and she takes it in stride, trusting her man. Soon enough, he's out working, searching for apartment buildings to buy, making endless phone calls, and trying to piece his buy-sell transactions together one step at a time. His wife, eager to support him, takes him to meet Joe, a man who could possibly be an investor or at least a helpful plug. They find him in a private lounge, surrounded by smooth jazz, a few chatty women, and a drink in hand. He's funny and sharp-tongued, probably not much younger than Deacon, and he keeps cracking jokes just to ease the tension in the room. But once they step outside, Bernard is clearly unimpressed. He scolds her gently but firmly, saying the jokester talks way too much and that he'd never mix business with someone that loose. Undeterred, he sets up a meeting with Mr. Barker. Inside the office, the aspiring realtor lays out his pitch. He wants to lease one of the apartments and rent it out to black tenants who are constantly being denied housing elsewhere. He offers to pay $30,000 but needs a $10,000 loan to facilitate this deal. Mr. Barker is wowed at his guts to demand a loan from him, the same man he wants to buy a building from. Bernard is confident in himself that he can pay back the loan in installments the moment he's done leasing the units, just in a few months' time. Barker loves the vision, but the financials don't sit right with him. To his ears, the proposal sounds like Bernard is asking for credit or an informal mortgage without calling it that. Bernard disagrees, of course, and tries to defend the deal, explaining the expected income, occupancy rate, and eventual return. But the other man, while impressed by his ambition, simply says,
"It's not the way I do business."
Still pushing forward, our main character walks into Mr. Reed's office building, where the stares from white folks in the hallway trail behind him. When he gets to the front desk, the secretary lies with a straight face.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reed is out.
I have pretty good eyesight and I can clearly read the name.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Even though the man is clearly sitting just beyond the glass, working away, Bernard doesn't argue. He just smiles politely and leaves, even though the door was never really open to begin with. He doesn't go far, though, and later, he's still posted outside, waiting for his chance. So when his target finally steps out, the opportunist makes his move and pitches again, this time face to face. Not just about real estate, but about credit, loan terms, and the kind of property appraisal numbers that make investors listen. Back home, his spirit feels a little crushed. The encounter didn't go as planned, and he can't hide it. Eunice sees right through him and encourages him not to give up, but to keep looking and keep hoping. Then the phone rings. It's Mr. Barker on the line. And the first thing he asks is why Bernard used his name to file a loan application. He tries to explain, stumbling a bit, but Barker cuts in, asking if that was the right way to go about it. There's a pause, and he finally admits that it wasn't. He apologizes, but instead of scolding him, the caller throws a curveball. He says that for someone like Bernard, following all the formal channels won't ever get him where he's trying to go. So he agrees to stand as a guarantor and tells him to go ahead and see Reed about the loan request. Bernard is stunned, and his voice is full of gratitude as he thanks the man. Later, the couple attend a cocktail party. One is having fun, moving from one guest to another, while the other sits quietly, barely touching his drink, until there's a shake in the air. Joe walks in, and as usual, the man is loud, unapologetic, and ready with a joke. Right away, he clears the air that there's nothing going on between him and Eunice, and her husband needs to stop acting like there is. Bernard doesn't say much, but loudmouth, as always, just laughs it off. The two step outside for a smoke, and as they light up, the conversation naturally shifts. The carefree man admits he respects the young realtor's fire, saying it takes guts to pursue ownership the way he's doing, especially with the financial conditions stacked against him, like inflated interest rates and loan restrictions that keep people like them out of the game. He says he's always down to back someone from their side of the tracks who's hungry for more. They talk about the property manager, the pending payment deadline, and the mounting pressure. Bernard swears he'll meet the loan installment deadline, which was part of their agreement terms. The older guy doesn't argue. He just lets out a short laugh, takes another drag, and heads back inside like he already knows how the story's gonna end. The commercial building is officially Bernard's now, and he's knee-deep in renovations alongside Tony, Deacon's son, when a white woman walks in looking quite uncomfortable. The new owner breaks the news about the change in ownership rights, meaning he now holds full title and control of the property. But she just stares like he told her the moon is made of cheese and storms inside anyway. Deacon's boy, meanwhile, had already called up his white friend Matt to help out. And surprisingly, Matt loves the work. His cousin tries to figure out what made Matt say yes, but the guy seems genuine. Probably just someone curious about real estate development and not hung up on who signs the management agreement. Work hums along until the police show up. Ms. Cooper has filed a legal complaint accusing the new owner of trespassing and impersonating the real owner. Thankfully, he's got the deal paperwork. The officers scrutinize the documentation, flipping through pages and checking the signatures. They finally leave, but not without a warning to show the tenants more respect. That evening, Bernard shows up at the building and gets a polite reminder from the persistent woman.
You can't be here after 6 p.m.
I'm a resident. I'm moving in.
Leaving her shocked. Soon enough, the young realtor has every block leased, and his partner couldn't be prouder. So he brings up a proposal for 50-50 partnership, where Bernard handles all the brains and behind-the-scenes work, while the older businessman becomes the face of the operation. Without hesitation, the realtor shakes his hand eagerly, and Barker's already eyeing a building not far from Bernard's, their first big project as partners. In the following days, the duo turn into a property-hunting dream team, snapping up apartments and turning them into gyms. Business booms, and the husband finally has enough income from rentals and sale deals to buy a place for himself and his girl, making her burst with joy. But tragedy strikes when Barker refuses to wake up one morning. His partner finds him stiff as a board in bed. Then she makes her move, offering to buy Bernard's share. But since there's no legal paper trail, no signed business partnership agreement or document outlining ownership share, her offer is basically peanuts. Take it or leave it, with the leave it meaning, well, losing everything. Bernard's left dumbfounded, realizing his only chance to save the deal is to find a witness who can verify the oral agreement. Otherwise, he's about to get the short end of the lease. Mr. Reed could have been the way in, but that door shuts fast, and with no other real lead, the next move is clearly to head over to the only guy who might listen. The setup is impressive, and it's obvious he's been putting in work. 17 apartments, all under his belt. MC doesn't waste time and pitches the idea. Buy the tallest commercial building in Los Angeles. That catches his host off guard, and for a second he just stares, half amused and then half impressed. It's bold, almost reckless, but clever as no one from their side of town owns anything close to that in the heart of the city. He pours a drink and laughs, telling him to shoot. The plan is, once they own the place, they'll become landlords to 12 banks. That kind of leverage means easier loans for whatever comes next. The idea clicks, but there's a catch. It would mean doing business where they're not exactly welcome. Bernard doesn't deny it, and that honesty gets a laugh even if there's still a cloud of doubt on how it'll all play out. They loop in Matt, as he's someone whose face could open the doors that might otherwise stay shut. The man in question is hesitant, unsure if he's even built for that kind of pressure. But the pitch is convincing, and the goal feels bigger than him. The potential partner doesn't love the idea. His trust circle is small, and even smaller when it comes to strangers. It's not about skin, that's just how Joe is. Still, the realtor seems sure, and that's enough to keep things moving. Later, Matt sits in a cafe, still wrestling with the decision. That's when the waitress walks up and it turns out it's Susie from high school. She remembers everything. He remembers nothing. But something clicks when she explains he was the popular one in school. When she leaves, he immediately calls in to say he's all in. But if he's going to convince wealthy folks downtown, he's got to look and act the part. That means starting with golf, something he's never tried. His mentor takes him out, shows him the ropes, and watches as the poor guy swings and misses his way through the day. Meanwhile, the other half of the team starts handling the numbers. He breaks down property values, loan margins, and how to avoid getting cheated during a buy-sell transaction. The new recruit listens carefully and nods, but once the figures start flying, his confidence fades fast. So they ease into it. It's slower, a bit clumsy, and the math still throws him off now and then, but the teacher doesn't get impatient. He just keeps guiding him step by step, because the only thing that matters is staying in the game and getting better with every move. Golf feels like punishment for the rookie, because he either swings too hard and sends the ball flying into nowhere, or he misses it altogether, making him groan, while Joe just sighs. But eventually, after enough tries and enough side eyes from Joe, he finally lands one clean straight into the hole after a single shot. And Joe lights up like someone just won him money. It's a victory, and it finally feels earned. The transformation doesn't stop there. His wardrobe gets overhauled, and his old clothes are replaced with sharp, tailored pieces. And when it comes to etiquette, Eunice steps in, so he learns which fork to use and how not to embarrass himself at the dinner table. Also, he listens and practices and gets better, because he knows all of it matters. Soon, he's back on the golf course again, standing more confidently and swinging cleaner, and this time, he impresses Joe for real. That's when Bernard shows up, and instead of small talk, he throws him a surprise math question about real estate valuation. But the guy doesn't freeze. Instead, he hits the ball farther than either of them ever have, and answers correctly without a pause, like it's nothing. The two older men exchange a quick glance, and they both know the training worked. Joe pulls out a folded $100 bill and hands it over without a word, finally admitting defeat on that old bet about whether this kid could pull it off. Bernard just grins because he knew he would. Now, it's go time. They arrange for him to attend a private club event where, hopefully, he'll bump into Charles Renault, the man who owns the building they're after. Joe drives him there himself, gives him the alias Morris, and reminds him to stay cool, play smart, and sound like he belongs. Somehow, the setup works, because he's paired with Charles for a round of golf, and he handles it all smoothly, including the game, the conversation, and the charm, all like he's done this all his life. After that, they prep him for the real deal, which is a meeting at Charles' office. He walks in sharp and focused, and as soon as they start talking, Matt sticks to the plan. The prodigy speaks clearly and delivers all the loan-to-value ratios, projected cash flow, and net operating income figures from memory with no notes or slips, just clean precision. Charles watches, impressed, while his own assistant is still fumbling with the financial calculator. And when he asks how it's possible, the guy just shrugs and says he practices a lot, which isn't a lie, even though Bernard had drilled every figure into his head beforehand. The champ applies every trick he's been taught, speaking like someone who belongs at the table, and handling the purchase agreement negotiation like it's just another golf round. Eventually, Charles leans back, smiles, and stretches out a hand. Just like that, the deal is executed. The celebration is loud and fast. There's cheering and hugs, and even Joe laughs harder than usual. The tallest commercial real estate asset in the city is now theirs, and they didn't just get in the door, they bought the whole lobby. Mr. Reed can't keep his mouth shut, clearly impressed, as Bernard and the crew get ushered into their new executive suite, probably wondering how they pulled that one off. They move quickly, acquiring additional income-producing properties and using commercial loans underwritten by their own tenants, the banks themselves, which makes the whole thing feel like a clever game of Monopoly where they're winning every round. Things look good all around. Matt marries Susie, and before long, the partnership has nearly 200 properties under management, turning heads and raising eyebrows. The proud father takes his family to visit his dad, who's excited to see them, and a little proud, when Junior starts bragging about meeting the vice president of Mainland Bank. Britton nods approvingly, quietly proud of the big moves his son's making. The next day, Bernard takes Junior on a walk through Texas, and it hits the boy how sharply divided everything is. Even the black shoe shiners have signs that say whites only, and he feels the weight of it. Looking up at the towering main branch of Mainland, something clicks inside him, like a decision was waiting to be made all along. Back in LA, he goes straight to his partner's office to share his plan to move into bank ownership and finance. Joe nearly spits out his drink as commercial banking and regulatory compliance are a whole different ballgame. But the opportunist insists they trust Matt, which the other guy doesn't love since he's seen too many deals go sideways. The older partner lays it out. Odds are stacked against them in Texas, and who's even running the bank? The younger one pushes back, saying the new guy's got what it takes, but Joe's not buying it. Bank governance and fiduciary oversight are complicated, and he's definitely not packing for Texas anytime soon. And he figures their white friend probably won't either. For Bernard, it's personal, not just about business, even if he can't quite put his finger on why. The advisor guesses and suggests moving Bernard's dad closer while reminding him to keep community reinvestment goals and business separate because, where he's concerned, they can't save every black person out there. Still determined, the resilient hunts for another partner, which makes his current one rethink his stance a bit. Though he still thinks the idea is shaky, he shakes Bernard's hand anyway, a silent promise they're in this together. They head to the bank with Donald, Joe's longtime white friend, tagging along to back Matt during the bank acquisition meeting. The pitch is that the bank will boost income by making loan origination, underwriting, and disbursement smarter and faster. Robert, the owner's son, looks uneasy with some partners missing, but his dad's okay with it, happy to keep his 20% equity stake while Robert answers to the new owners, which makes his face say everything. The stock purchase agreement gets signed without a hitch, except for Daddy's boy, who looks like he just swallowed a lemon. Bernard meets with church leaders and heads of black organizations to share the good news because his venture will make it easier for black folks to get mortgage financing, small business loans, and retail credit, which will also help the company's fortune grow. Still, he asks everyone to act responsibly so the whole thing doesn't fall apart before it even gets started. Meanwhile, Robert notices the spike in approved loans and confronts Matt, who stays calm and sharp with his answers. He explains that since banks make money from interest income on loans, it only makes sense to use the capital reserves to help people and boost profits at the same time. But the man isn't satisfied, so he starts investigating the loans and the mystery partners. He even goes on a stakeout and snaps a photo of two of the musketeers deep in conversation, apparently about Robert's knowledge of the black loans. After 3 months in Texas, Susie is ready to quit. She questions the move, but her husband is comfortable with his salary, though Susie isn't having it. She reminds him he was offered an ownership stake, so why is he still on a fixed paycheck? Matt promises things will change after their next acquisition, but she remains skeptical. The three partners sit down to talk when the nosy character suddenly crashes the meeting. He knows all about the black loans and threatens to spill the beans to the community, including revealing the undisclosed beneficial owners of the bank. But his own father already knows the truth, so the potential snitch just ends up looking like the guy who showed up to a party everyone else was already at. After Robert leaves, the trio still needs to figure out how to avoid the wrath of the U.S. Treasury Department. Their best bet might be to stop the black loans altogether, but Matt throws out a wild card. They'll buy another bank. He suggests Maryland Bank, a small Texas institution, as a fresh home for the black loans, which would take heat off their original bank. The plan comes with numbers too. A loan package from the aggregator worth $971,000, carrying an 8% interest but offered at 6.5. That 1.5% spread would put the bank in profit straight away. Matt wants Joe and Bernard to incorporate as brokers, which would earn them a $200,000 commission on the package of mortgages. Joe raises concerns, but Matt's done his homework. It's legal. He also insists on becoming a named co-owner and president and running the place himself. MC isn't thrilled with the idea, so Matt ups the ante by offering to resign and head back to Los Angeles if they don't agree. Joe calls it blackmail, but the prodigy calls it creative negotiation. Joe reminds Bernard of his earlier fears, calling the Texas venture a risky gamble. Neither one of them wants to lose everything they've invested, so they relent and acquire Maryland Bank. They even arrange for Eunice to be on site, disguised as a janitor just in case things get messy. The wife isn't exactly thrilled about Matt running the bank, especially since he's new to the game. But the white guy figures if Bernard can do it, so can he. With Bernard unable to oversee the new venture himself, Matt officially takes charge. Susie is Matt's biggest cheerleader and even jokes that the other two aren't any better than him. After all, they're all just trying to make it. Then Robert drops a bomb. Hundreds of white account holders are closing their accounts. Things get worse when officials from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency show up to inspect Maryland Bank. Bernard worries the star boy won't handle the pressure when the government regulators return in under an hour. So he decides he has to be present during the audit meeting because no senior partner wants to leave his junior co-owner to face a financial control inspection alone. The only way to access the restricted building is by taking up the janitor role. Inside the boardroom, an officer from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency begins the compliance verification, drilling the young executive on financial conditions and recent loan activity. Bernard stands by the office door, discreetly signaling answers during the questioning, but the inspector catches on and promptly locks the door. Back with the rest of the team, anxiety builds as the impromptu audit continues without backup. The rookie excuses himself briefly to gather documentation, and when he returns, the questioning shifts. The regulator brings up inconsistencies in the loan files, discrepancies in the capital allocation, payment schedules, and installment structures. Later, he steps away again to consult the senior partners. That's when they discover the real damage. The official loan records no longer match the versions initially submitted for review. Someone had manipulated the bank's profit and return rate calculations to make the deals seem more stable. Worse, Matt admits to using a deal representative, a legal advisor recommended by the same insider who helped him restructure the financial documents, without approval from Bernard or Joe. The two older men are furious. Joe's earlier warnings about the financial strategy come roaring back. It feels like Robert's plan to sabotage the investment property operation at the main bank is working after all. To protect the firm's banking reputation and avoid further license risk, they decide the smaller bank has to be shut down. Matt pushes back with vague negotiation points, but none of them hold up under regulatory scrutiny. Even so, he takes matters into his own hands and tries to use capital from the main bank to cover losses and late loan payments tied to Maryland Bank. When the internal compliance aide catches on, he informs the senior partners and they burst into Matt's office to confront him about the unauthorized transfer of funds across ownership entities. Then, the real blow hits. The deputy comptroller for the Southern District walks in with his legal team and delivering the grim message of a formal license revocation due to violations of federal banking legislation, citing an anonymous tip. Matt is officially removed as president under emergency governance provisions. The regulators begin clearing the premises. Outside, federal agents arrest the remaining culprits for breach of banking law and falsification of audit documents. Bernard tries to protest, demanding a proper explanation, but is quickly subdued. And just like that, the legal fallout begins. The government offers a deal. In exchange for immunity, the men must become the public face of a U.S. Senate campaign that wants to use their story to promote financial oversight reform. Behind the scenes, pressure mounts on Matt to break ranks. He's told someone must take the fall for the legal violations, and that if he cooperates, he can claim he was just a figurehead following oral agreements directed by his senior partners. At the Senate hearing, which is already underway, Matt is called to testify. On the record, he blames everything on the other two, from the loan structuring to the ownership share transfer to the real estate financing schemes, implying that every move was part of a business partnership orchestrated by Bernard and Joe. The senior partners sit quietly in the back, absorbing the betrayal in silence. Later, Melvin, Bernard's attorney, schedules a private meeting with Senator McClellan. The plan: Bernard should corroborate Matt's version, but pivot the responsibility onto systemic flaws in the federal banking constitution. McClellan mocks him for trying to challenge financial law and constitutional norms just to shift property valuation and lease terms in Texas. Now, Bernard is left with two choices: agree and receive legal immunity, or reject the offer and risk conviction in federal court. The first path clears him of charges. The second leaves everything: income, assets, freedom, hanging in limbo. Back home, he turns to his wife. She tells him to follow his instincts and assures him she'll stand by whatever decision he makes. When it's time for Bernard to testify, he crosses the chamber floor and cracks a line at Matt, saying he'll happily pin the whole buy-sell transaction on him. But in the same breath, he admits he's proud of how far the rookie's come. Maybe not perfect, but not a quitter either. The lawyer beside him tenses, thinking it might affect his ability to read from the written statement. But his wife leans in and quietly reassures them. The glasses are just for appearance, not necessity. He opens by speaking plainly about equal treatment, about fairness not being a privilege, but a right. Then he cuts to the heart of it. He says it's shameful that this hearing has devolved into a witch hunt against two black men who dared to pursue ownership share in the Texas banking industry. The room shifts. Quiet murmurs ripple through the gallery. The committee chair cuts in, warning him against making inflammatory remarks. But Bernard doesn't stop. He holds up the janitor's uniform he wore during the loan audit, calling it a symbol of how black citizens are boxed into service roles, excluded from legitimate access to capital, credit, financial strategy, and the constitutional rights that should guarantee equal opportunity. Cameras flash. Reporters shift forward. Members of the Banking Oversight Committee exchange tense glances. He presses on, laying out how systemic exclusion from basic banking services, from fair mortgage terms to commercial property loans, keeps entire communities locked out of economic power. He ends with a quiet question. How can a country claim justice when entire groups are denied even the right to participate? Everyone in the room already knows where this is heading. The committee chair regains control and delivers the ruling. The jury find Bernard and his partner are found guilty of misusing investor funds and violating banking license conditions. They're sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Before the sentence begins, the government seizes nearly all of their assets through a court-ordered financial audit, leaving only a single commercial building intact, protected because it was registered under Eunice's name. The insider who helped fracture the bank swoops in after the deal signing and buys it back, using legal manipulation to acquire controlling ownership. But the story doesn't end there. While the partners serve their sentence, Eunice receives word that not everything was lost. The junior associate, the same one who testified, had quietly protected a portion of their portfolio. A handful of investment properties in the Bahamas were moved into a trust structure, shielded from U.S. financial oversight. When the two men are released, they pick up where they left off. They begin rebuilding their capital through rental and resale deals in the Caribbean, then transition back to the real estate market in Los Angeles. This time, there are no partners, no proxies, just direct ownership and a clear plan. In the end, their battle sparks something bigger. Public pressure forces legislative reform. A new law passes through the U.S. Congress, one that finally bans discrimination in apartment building sales based on race, religion, or gender.